summary of Sex at Dawn: How We Mate, Why We Stray, and What It Means for Modern Relationships by Christopher Ryan, Ph.D. and Cacilda Jetha, M.D. Let's uncover the gems together.
Key point 1. Sex doesn't necessarily mean love. Sexuality is a powerful resource that has the potential to make us more confident and capable of working miracles. However, liberated human beings are hard to control, especially in repressive societies. For that reason, all the topics circulating the idea of sex were pathologized by physicians, silenced by religious authorities, studiously ignored by scientists, and covered up by didactic therapists. In Spanish, the word esposas means both wives and handcuffs. Unhappy marriages often serve as the frames for novels about the sexual lives of men and women to be pitied and mourned. The man typically loses his freedom, whereas the woman gets repressed in different aspects. Nowadays, something about the concept of marriage and human relationships seems very wrong. More and more people experience sexual dysfunction. No wonder Viagra is selling at a frantic rate each year. Finally, pornography seems to absorb the money of willing devotees, more than any theaters or operas could ever gather, around $100 billion annually. Since childhood, we have learned to fight our eroticism and deny our desires. Our fantasies evolve, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Instead of battling our hunger, we need to embrace it as a way to understand more about our nature. In this summary, you will see how human beings evolved in intimate groups where people shared almost everything: food, shelter, protection, childcare, and even sexual pleasure. It will show you how contemporary culture misrepresents the connection between love and sex. Spoiler: there is sex without love, and it is not a subject of blame. Key point 2. Darwin knew lots about evolution, but little about sex. We may reevaluate our complicated relationship with sexuality with Charles Darwin. His book, On the Origin of Species, was a breakthrough work that laid the foundation for evolutionary biology. Nevertheless, it was quite biased regarding sex and eroticism. The scholars seem to underestimate their importance, to put it mildly. What do we think of when we hear sexual life of prehistoric people? Perhaps something primitive, violent, male-dominated. Remarkably, these false assumptions are still pervasive in the modern understanding of human sexuality. Indeed, Darwin's outlook on prehistoric human life could be to blame. In his book, Darwin wrote that a woman was passive and reserved compared to a man. The man had to court her, and she was to escape his endeavors. He made it look like this female reticence was a defining factor for successful mating. Even though that might be entirely accurate for some mammals, this does not reflect the love life of human beings. Observing his male contemporaries, who were after several women at a time, Charles Darwin assumed that early humans might have been polygynous. To his mind, it was one male mating with several females. He wrote that Aboriginal people lived in small communities, where the stronger men had as many wives as they could obtain and support. A one-sided view of human love life leads to significant misunderstandings, bias, and blame. Needless to say, what a brilliant scientist Charles Darwin was. However, he had little empirical data regarding his own sexual experience, his certainly proper wife, and his first cousin. The man himself was too buttoned up, even to admit the presence of lust. That is reflected in his very theoretical approach to sexual issues. For example, his notes on the benefits of marriage read that a man might get children who would be faithful companions in old age and an object of love. To him, a child was better than a dog in terms of companionship anyway. However, chattering with women, which seemed a painful yet inseparable part of marital life, seemed a mere waste of time to Charles Darwin. Key point 3. Sexual exclusivity and parenthood. What does a male suitor get for his preening and showing off? Indeed, it was sex and exclusive favor of a specific woman. According to evolutionary psychology, in prehistoric times, men offered goods and services in exchange for consistent sexual access, called the sex contract by biological anthropologist Helen Fisher, Ph.D. Many believe that nature intends for a male suitor to become the most attractive to the female he wants to get. For that purpose, he preens and shows off for her, and, as a reward, he gets sex and exclusive access to her. Don't let societal stigmas about sexuality dictate your personal experiences. Those sex contracts resembled game theory, producing the most offspring results in the highest return on investment. According to this contract, a woman should choose a man who will help her during pregnancy and support her and the baby after the birth. Otherwise, she's just wasting her time, energy, and risks of pregnancy. Furthermore, without a supportive father, the child has a much lower chance of making it past sexual maturity. In turn, a man is determined to invest his time, resources, and energy in a woman who is not promiscuous. Otherwise, he risks raising another man's child. That might sound like a humane thing to do, but many men at the time wanted exclusivity when it came down to their relationship with a woman. Moreover, they wanted their genes to advance into the future. In such a way, men thought they had to follow basic evolutionary logic and leave their own genes on Earth. Men lay claim to particular women as songbirds lay claim to territories, as lions lay claim to a kill, or as people of both sexes lay claim to valuables. Margot Wilson, Martin Daly. One more evolutionary psychology theory suggests that women consider men more sexually attractive if he has a higher mating value, or the sum of characteristics they deem attractive reflect likely reproductive success. It depends on the man's ability to provide for her offspring and her, protect her and her children, engage in direct parenting activities. Key point 4. Many fathers, one child. Anthropologists Paul Valentine and Stephen Beckerman explain the concept of partible paternity as a phenomenon in which a child can have more than one father. All sexually active women bear traces of all the lovers they have ever had. The semen of each new sexual partner accumulates in the womb, contributing to the fetus's formation. The advocates of partible paternity believe that if a woman stops having sex, her fetus ceases to develop. However, many reputable sources state this is not scientifically verifiable. Instead, it is a cultural conceptualization. According to this theory, the woman will sleep with every man she can exploit. In this way, her child will have every advantage possible with the help of these men. Symbolically or intentionally, this woman will require all kinds of perks, from the best hunters to the most charming and best-looking guys. Her child has to get a little of the best from each man. Many South African societies follow a similar method of conception. Such partible paternity is an ancient folk belief, providing adequate upbringing to children, paternal presence, and a family support system in these societies. In Paraguay, an anthropologist asked the Ache people to identify their fathers. Each child had 4 different fathers: the one who put it in, the one who mixed it, the father who spilled it out, and who provided the child's essence. At this angle, a child enjoys having multiple fathers, all of whom care about them. Such children have higher chances of surviving childhood than the ones with just one father. Moreover, no one calls such children bastards, and different fathers of one child don't treat each other as rivals. Instead, they see each other as partners contributing to the child's best benefit. Shared paternity is their special bond, which is a different kind of human relationship. Remember that self-care is an important aspect of sexual health. Key point 5. Broken promises, sealed fates. While male hypersexuality could be a thing even for Charles Darwin, women are usually expected to suffice with having just one partner. This narrative needs to be debunked. Extramarital sex remains widespread in monogamous societies, a reason most often leading to divorce. Zoologist and surrealist painter Desmond Morris's classic book, The Naked Ape, explains that sexual behavior pertains only to a pair-bonded state, and adultery is the imperfection that ruins that state. The Iranian government considers adultery an immeasurable sin. Both parties involved in cheating are often stoned to death. Before the hypocritical others decided to cast the first stones, they buried male adulterers to their waists and women to their necks, so they would die faster for erroneously believing that their bodies belong to themselves. Know that consent can be withdrawn at any time and should be respected. Meanwhile, All major religions imply that women have no control over their bodies, let alone their sexuality. For instance, the Bible considers adultery a major sin worthy of punishment by death. This judgment is still harsh, and it regards both parties cheating as sinners. Despite these horrendous punishments, adultery persists everywhere without exception, but not everyone is punished with equal severity for indulging in it. Non-human primates are never monogamous. Of course, as humans, we have evolved culturally, but our unconscious sexual drives remain beastly for the most part. Even when we repress them, they find their way out. As anthropological findings suggest, extramarital sexual affairs were recorded in every human culture ever studied. Moreover, the most passionate anti-adultery campaigners are usually the ones who commit adultery. Monogamy does not come naturally to our species, so no one should be threatened with death for going against it. Did you know? No primates living in large social groups are monogamous. Key point 6. Sharing means surviving. Now that we have regarded a different view of prehistoric human sexuality, we can draw two interconnected assumptions. A prehistoric woman and her child need food and protection. A willing man can provide that. This woman offers him her beauty and sexual autonomy in exchange. This way, the man knows that he is supporting his offspring. This pragmatic narrative elicits how protein and protection are equal to the guarantee of assured paternity. Moreover, the result of this exchange is the increased life expectancy of the child. Enjoy your sexual life responsibly, respecting both yourself and your partner. Although this monogamous model ensures exclusivity and ownership, wouldn't it be better for a child to have several men taking care of their future? Logically, generalized sharing means more protection, meat, and status. Moreover, all the risks get mitigated faster and more efficiently. We can define the relationships between our prehistoric foragers as egalitarian. It means that everyone had equal rights and was treated equally by others. After all, our ancestors did everything to survive. They had no choice but to team up and pull their efforts together. In the Darwinian sense, humans based their behavior on what gave them the highest survival chances. They chose to share over preserving their egos. When we decide to share and assume mutual responsibility, we don't feel the necessity to steal others' resources. For Ice Age mobile hunting societies, the band model of social organization, with its obligatory sharing of resources, was really the only way to live. Peter Bogutsky. However, today, egalitarianism has become our best chance to survive. It is no longer a utopia, but a system offering practical solutions. Spreading resources equally across societies minimizes the risk of resource waste and promotes a secure social environment for both children and adults. Conclusion. Sexuality is one of the things we try to repress. Why do we find it easier to avoid something that we could embrace instead? The answers might differ, but the main reason usually is the irrational and inexplicable nature of the drive we feel. Thinking about our sexuality, we tend to find scary things we can't control right away rather than embrace their uniqueness. What many fail to see in this conjunction is that sexuality is not to be controlled. We should make use of it. Our prehistoric ancestors were not nearly as eloquent as we are today. Yet, they found it easier to come to terms with their sexual behavior. They understood that to survive, they needed to put their sexuality to work. Unlike the monogamous humans of today, our foragers believed in sharing resources, including sexual ones. This philosophy helped them get by and evolve. Even if we put sexuality aside for a second, there is still another great practice our predecessors had. In times of increased danger, they chose to parent a child as a team. So, even if we don't think the same way, there is something we can learn from them and introduce into modern society. Try this. Recognize and work to overcome any shame you may feel about your erotic curiosity. Work on building confidence in yourself and your appearance. If you see sex as something bad that you shouldn't do, consider consulting a therapist for support and guidance.
That's all for now. More intriguing summaries are just a click away.